Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I cannot see you. Have to be in a quiet.
Jeniande bayoti mayo kumbale mo ganduni ajario ganduni megelo rambayo chumalinke zompeyo
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are back into our program, LEKET La Caisse de Résonance Africaine, LEKET, our program from Sunuker.fm, based in Los Angeles, in California. And we have already, first of all, before I say anything, congratulations to the Senegalese, shout out to the Senegalese team. Shout out to those who won that Senegalese team, the champion, African champion. We cannot start our program without talking about that, because last time we have several times Laijao who are talking about this program. We are happy that Senegal is now the African champion. Today we have a special person that I definitely admire a lot, someone that is doing a lot for the African and the Black community and all the community who are definitely in need in California. We have a special guest, right? We have the special guest who is Mr. Eric MANN, a veteran of the Congress of Racial Equality and the Network Community Union Project. Eric, welcome to our channel, Sunuker and LEKET. Eric.
Adrienne, so nice to be with you and all our friends, hopefully in Senegal, all over the world, but hopefully Africans and Black people and all people in the United States.
Eric, thank you for being here today. I know it's Saturday. Usually you are resting. I want to make sure that people will know exactly who you are, because I just give a short, very short introduction to the amazing work that you start years ago and you still continue today. I don't know how you find the strength to do that. But I want to make sure that you give us a long, don't be short, please, a long history of your work, Eric.
Well, Adrienne, and also to everybody listening, first of all, I never rest. So Saturday I don't rest, and Sunday I sort of rest, but I work on my writing. So you can't rest in the revolution. That's one of the secrets, actually. But I want to say, Adrienne, when I met you, you're a very compelling person, and the work you're doing on public health, your understanding of pandemic and, in my opinion, imperialism, because to our listeners, the first thing about me is I am a Black nationalist, Pan-Africanist, pro-communist, anti-imperialist Jew from Brooklyn. And that's who I am. And I have been that way since 1965 when I got clear. And I've been doing it every single day. I have been in the Black community since I was 18 years old. I'm now a few years older. Over 50 years later, I'm in South Central Los Angeles with the Labor Community Strategy Center and our Strategy and Soul Movement Center. The reason I'm thrilled to be on the show, Adrienne, is because, as you know, this Thursday night, February 17th, from 6 to 8:30 p.m., there'll be a streaming program on how Europe underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. I urge the listeners to go on www.thestrategycenter.org, and you will find an easy way. You'll see the event there. There's 2 or 3 events, but that's the primary one. Go on the website and register for the event. We have almost 300 people registered, but given that this is our Europe underdeveloped Africa, we would love more Senegalese and more Africans to be joining us in the program that I'll tell you more about. So, Adrienne, should I now tell you a little bit of the story of me? You're on mute. I cannot hear you.
Eric, that's fantastic. Yes, when I met you, it was definitely by curiosity because I found your flyer online. I came to see the strategic center that I never knew. I'm 16 years, 17 years in Los Angeles. I've never saw about the strategic center. And I pass every time in front of the strategic center in Martin Luther King. In fact, I live on Martin Luther King Boulevard and I can walk to you. But never did I think that there was a place, so beautiful place where there is so many books. I'm always impressed by books because in Africa, we don't have, when we were young, we grew up with books. It was to read and read and read. Definitely, I was surprised. I was happy to see how you guys welcomed me at this time when we were talking about COVID, about Africa, about how we can help Africa getting into vaccine, etc. And I never stopped coming to you anytime that there is something happening. Yes, you said something about yourself, but I know you are doing more than that. You are doing more than that, and the program that you will run on Thursday is part of it. Yes, I'm giving you the floor to tell whatever you want, how you want to say that. You are really on open mic, Eric.
Well, thank you, everybody out there. And if I can say thank you, comrades. The first thing to understand, I'm working on a book that I'm actually going to finish this year after. This will be the 6th year. The book is called I Saw a Revolution with My Own Eyes, The Journey of a Movement Organizer. And the reason why I'm writing this book is in some way, Adrienne, just like you walked past Strategy and Soul, but you didn't know what it was. I'm saying that I was in a revolution for almost 40 years. And I think most people today don't know what it was. I mean, people in Africa, people in the United States, because there's been a great counter-revolution of which people have tried to discredit socialism, communism, even discredit national liberation and say it's one big, happy, imperialist world and you should join it. So since I don't agree with that, let me just tell you a little bit about my history. I do start as a Jew, and that's important because I was very fortunate that my mom was a furious anti-fascist. And also she told me very early that the Jews and the Negroes are in the same boat and everybody else hates us. And she was right. If you go on, see the show Blackish, the grandmother always tells the kids, remember they hate you. And I grew up with that understanding. I joined the Congress of Racial Equality in 1964. I was accepted by them. CORE was what's called the Black Militants. What CORE, it was supposedly nonviolent, they talk about that, but it was nonviolent direct action. And what that meant is that angry Black people would go into a store and say, we need you to hire Black people. And they'd say, well, when do you want to? And you say, now, freedom now. And we got that from the Africans. And then we said, and we're not leaving until you do. And to our surprise, they would do it. So I then went to the Newark Community Union Project, where I lived and worked in the Black community for another 2 years. I was there during the Urban Rebellion of 1967. And there should be more urban rebellions today because the United States cannot reform itself. The problem with imperialism is it's like a cancer. It can't be cured. It may go into remission once in a while, but it's a cancer and it can't be stopped. So I worked in an auto factory for 10 years with the United Auto Workers. I led an insurgency against the UAW International. I then joined what was called the New Communist Movement, Adrienne, and a lot of people in the late 60s, early 70s, who've been through the civil rights movement, through the Black movement, Chicano movement, Native American, and white kids, we began to see that the United States could not be protested out of business. We need to have a socialist revolution, and the best way was to start a new communist party. And we were very friendly with the People's Republic of China. And I am still today, and that's a conversation I'd love to have, because I know there's a lot of different opinions. But from what I know, China is doing much more for Africa than the United States. And that's what I believe, and that's a good conversation we can have. So I then moved to South Central Los Angeles. I was there during the Urban Rebellion of 1992. Now, wait a minute, why was an Urban Rebellion of 1992 if there was an Urban Rebellion in 1967, 68, 69? Why was there a Watts Rebellion? Then why was there a Rodney King Rebellion in 1992? Why was there a George Floyd Rebellion in 2021? Because the United States is a racist white settler state. And I am one of the few people, and the Strategy Center is one of the few people that talks like that. We don't think the United States has any legitimate right to exist. It stole land, it's based on stolen land and stolen people. Now I'm reading the book, and then I'll go back to, I'm reading the book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. It's a book that I'm assuming every African either has read or should read, because it's terrifying to read. It's so hard to read. I can only read it in small numbers of pages, because what the story says, which you know if you're in Senegal, is from about the 1480s, when Portugal began so-called trading with Africa. The Europeans are barbarians, and they don't know how to trade. Trading means we're equal. I have something, you have something. I may make some money off you. You may make some money off me, but I see you as a human being. I see you as Senegal. I see you as whoever you were at the time. But no, the first thing the Portuguese did, because they had a good navy, was sealed all the ports in Africa. So the Africans could no longer trade. And then the Europeans came, and, you know, I know a lot about the transatlantic slave trade, but I did not fully understand that Europe also enslaved Africa, prevented even trade between different African nations, societies, prevented Africans from even having the crafts and skills that they had for thousands of years before the Europeans came. To me, it's genocide. And if you like how I talk and you like how I think, or even if I'm just getting you angry, which is a lot what my job is please go on thestrategycenter.org and register for our event, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. There's no charge. And send me an email at eric@voicesfromthefrontlines.com. eric@voicesfromthefrontlines.com. I would love to hear from you. So, Adrienne, where do we go from here?
Well, Eric, that's amazing, the historic part, because we in Africa also was fighting against all this, the apartheid movement, but before that, for the colonization, because we have been colonized, we have to get the independence. It was during my father's time, and you know that African soldiers went to World War I and World War II to fight against Germany, specifically in World War II, to fight against Nazi. We don't speak about that quite often. I'm surprised that in the United States, this type of information is not shared with people. And I'm sure you know about this part of the history, when we don't definitely talk about what is happening overseas. Then where we go from that, how we can collaborate, because change are coming. You have the new generation, the young generation in Africa, who is rising and say, we don't want to be in this imperialism anymore. We want to be sure that we have a fair trade. We want to sit at the table. For today, what can you say by experience? What can you share with young people and the new generation who is listening to you? Because the revolution is coming in Africa.
Well, that's wonderful because, the Panthers would say the revolution has come. Time to pick up the gun. No more pigs in our community. Time to pick up some unity. No more brothers in jail. Pigs are going to catch hell. So that's how I was raised, And for the young people in Africa, here's the first thing I think is very important. The study of history is revolutionary, which is why they wouldn't let the slaves read. The imperialists never let the Africans have independence. They gave the Africans formal independence, but they never got out. They never left. And now, in many cases, it's what we call neocolonialism, because it's not just the fault, it's not even primarily the fault of the African, because you win national liberation, which they kill you to prevent. They murder you, the British, the French, especially, massacre. Did you know that I'm sure Senegalese and other Africans, especially in the French colonies, were sent to Vietnam to kill Vietnamese who are having a national liberation struggle? I just read about that. So after World War II, as you know, the African liberationists who had worked with the French, let's stay with the French, were promised independence after the war. Help us defeat Hitler. Now, did you know that the French didn't fight Hitler? Do you know that the French capitulated to Hitler within 40 days? They didn't put up any fight. At least the British fought. The French, so many of the French were for Hitler. They had a president named Leon Blum, who was a Jew. The French were so anti-Semitic that half of them said, we prefer Hitler to Leon Blum, our own president. After 40 days, 40 days, the French didn't pick up a gun, but then they didn't give up their colonies, even though they didn't fight in World War II. They didn't. Oh, sure, there was some French resistance, but they did not give up Vietnam. They did not give up Indochina, Laos, Cambodia. They did not give up Senegal. In fact, when France was rebuilding its battered economy, it intensified the exploitation of Senegal. It used Senegal to rebuild France, not to rebuild Senegal. So for the young African revolutionaries, do not think you're inventing this. If you don't know Jomo Kenyatta, if you don't know Joe Slovo and Ruth First, if you don't know Kwame Nkrumah, if you don't know Patrice Lumumba, you are not inventing this. Your job is to be part of a long march of history. It's going to be very difficult to find independence. And I'll say something because, Adrienne, you know me. I think we have to ally with Russia and China against the United States. That's how we did it in the 60s. And now they're making all this big thing about the Ukraine. Well, the United States invades any country it wants at any time it wants. And Russia is trying to protect its territorial borders against NATO. That's right up against it, trying to encroach on Russian sovereignty. The Russians are not trying to invade the United States, for God's sake. The Chinese are not trying to invade the United States. But the United States is setting up bases all over the world to encircle China, encircle Russia. So I would say to your listeners, first go on our website, www.thestrategycenter.org. To me, Eric at voicesfromthefrontlines.com. Eric, I agree with you. What book should I read? Eric, I don't agree with you. I will answer your letter. I'm getting all these wonderful letters at the end because I wrote this article against Kenneth Branagh's film Belfast, which is a story of Protestants in Ireland who were fascists and who put down the Catholic Irish. So imperialism exists all over the world. And I think the first thing, whether it was Stephen Biko in the Black Consciousness Movement, is read, and then act. Don't just read, but without history. The young Black people in the United States, Adrienne, they're great. They're rising up, but they actually think they're inventing this. They have a slogan, some of them say, this is not my grandparents' civil rights movement, as if to distance themselves from Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Black Panther Party. Why? Why would you say this is not your grandparents' civil rights movement instead of saying, it will take a miracle to get my grandparents' civil rights movement back, and I want to build on the work of my grandparents, not bury them after they've already been buried. And I'm not, by the way, I'm quite alive, I'm fine. So I think for the young people in Africa, if you're anti-imperialist, which we need you to be, if you're just trying to figure out Senegalese sovereignty, because that's the issue. Fundamentally, I do believe socialism is the answer. But the first answer is self-determination and sovereignty. Let the people of Senegal fight for their future. They can argue among themselves. But you got to get the French out. You got to get the British out, the US out, because otherwise you are still colonized. And how do you find self-determination while they have military bases all over Africa, or they have AFRICOM, it's called? I don't know. But the first thing is to know that's the nature of the challenge. And from there, we can figure it out together. You're back on mute, my
Yeah,
comrade.
Eric, this is fantastic. Yes. My man, this is amazing what you're saying, comrade. One thing that you are saying, and is exactly true, unfortunately, we have had a lot of coups right now in Africa. We have different countries. We have the coup in Mali. We had the coup in Burkina Faso.
Yes.
We had a coup in Guinea. But what I saw and what we see is many of the what can I say? Many of the French people, French is still there, right? And people are trying to say to France, you have to go out. And France doesn't want to go out, meaning there is a kind of sovereignty, but you don't have your sovereignty because you say to someone, hey, get out of my country. And the person doesn't want to get out, meaning what should we do to prevent this? Because it's terrible that someone is saying, hey, I don't want to see you here. I can, live by myself. And we cannot do that in France. We cannot go to France and decide that, hey, we want to see what's happening to your country. We want to make sure that we can talk to you, etc., etc. But that doesn't happen. That's like that. Now, question again to you: how the people in Mali can put the people out? Because last time the parliament in France was talking about the case in Mali. Then Mali said, you guys have to get out. Right. And the parliament in France was trying to justify the fact that Mali was asking that question, and they were trying to explain why they have to stay in a country that has its own sovereignty and telling to people, leave, and they don't want to leave. What is your opinion to that? Thank you.
Well, it's my opinion, but it's also my concern. This is going to be a multi-generational strategy at the end. It's not going to be, what do you do right this minute? For instance, we need to build a movement to tell the French to leave. Even if they don't leave, you have to delegitimize them. I've worked in the Black community my whole life. There was a period of Black power. was some group said, we want all the white civil rights movement people to leave the community. It wasn't hostile in this case. It was saying we need a moment or years or a decade to just be all Black because we're going through a Black consciousness movement. Now, I'll be honest with you, I was one of the few whites, they say, we don't want you to go. We're not talking about you. But I said, look, to the other whites, you're not being kicked out. It's their community. They're not kicking, you act like you have rights in the Black community. You don't. They're very nice. They invited you in to help. And now they're inviting you to please leave. Now, the French in Senegal never came to help. In how Europe underdeveloped Africa, the French called the Senegalese overseas French. Isn't that brilliant? You're overseas French. You're not Senegalese. So the thing to understand is that many people, Senegalese and sisters and brothers in Senegal, I don't know the situation that well, and I'm being very careful. But this is what I do know. I know that the French and the British in particular brought Africans back to England to be educated, or I should say miseducated. They were trained to be a new elite, to go back and carry out the wishes of France and England. I know that the CIA and whatever the French intelligence agency is are inside the military, working with the military to say there cannot be a revolution in Senegal. You must protect your interests and French interests, and those are the interests are the same. So you have a hard job to do because in Venezuela, Hugo Chavez was in the army. He was a very big general. He organized the generals for sovereignty, to kick out the United States, to kick out England, kick out Portugal. That's very rare. So this is what I think the challenge is. We need small groups of people out there, small groups of people to form collectives, to write flyers, to educate other people, to carry out small actions that hopefully will not be repressed, to reach out to the better French, to say, could you please leave? And to get some French people in France to say, all out of Senegal, let the Senegalese have their own country. This is a lifetime job. I'm having the trouble in the United States, trust me. It's not like we can't get US imperialism out of South Central Los Angeles either. So the first thing is consciousness, then leadership, then organization.
Well, interesting, my friend, interesting comrade. I know you are doing so well. This is we need to sit. I think we need to have a special meeting inviting African community in Los Angeles with you, to sit with you and to listen. That we're going to share, of course, this program. We want to make sure that people will listen to that. We're going to give you like 5-minute break to listen to on one of our singers. That will give us time maybe to refresh our throat, because the conversation is just starting. I'm not giving you 30 minutes, Eric. I don't know if you have time. I'm going to continue because we just even scratched the surface of what we want to talk about. Jawar.
All right. Adrienne, can I listen to the music too?
Jenyande bayoti mayo kumbale mo ganduni ejario ganduni megelo ambayo chumalinke zompeyo jenyande papnun ke ngoda yizompeyo gandunu okorvatu bayo merkati monono ganduni jabel bayo yimbil katemeno ganduni tabungon bayon lana dotu pano jeniande lana dotu pano korvatu yo o korvatu bayon dare jini ramo korvatu bay komi bay papa bayo tabayo ye jario ganuni Garamaro merkati monono marvatu yo la garamaro la garangwazano tavatu yo vatu maro biado yai moy marvatu yo vatu mara moy merkati yo tayayo ya goma yon vatirol jeno tayayo vatu mara yon vatirol jobo tayayo Ejario ganduni Ejario gandunu Zen yoma eko zeno jabezen Nota zen agada zanga marzeno Nota zen Buka juli zeno njogu ya duleno Njog bazen Baya blai baye kumbando zeno Nota zen Baya blayo baye kumbando veno no tazin.
Or just to remember to people what we are doing. We are here today on LEKET La Caisse de Résonance Africaine in Los Angeles on the Sunuker.fm. If you want to call, if you want to intervene, si vous voulez appeler sur LEKET et poser des questions, please call the +1, that is USA, 951 318 9525. Si vous voulez appeler, appelez sur WhatsApp ou sur votre téléphone direct si vous êtes aux États-Unis au numéro 1 951 318 95 25. 1 étant l'indicatif des États-Unis, je reprends le numéro 1 plus 1 indicatif des États-Unis 951 318 95 25 et en anglais +1, that is USA 951 318 9525. You can dial directly on the number, and Mr. Njawarjo, we give you the mic. Mr. Njawarjo, we give us more information. Go ahead, Njawar.
All right, Adrienne, thank you for having me. I have a question that I would like to ask to Mr. Lian MANN. And the question is, you know, I've been living in the United States for now 20 years, and I see America as a country of opportunity. And I can tell you every day, people pray their God to come to the U.S. Everywhere, especially in Africa, we the poor countries, even though our land is full of natural resources. But the question I have is, although we had a bad experience with the French colony, the English colony in Africa, but one thing that I would like to ask you to have your opinion is, I've seen in America every sector is working fine for the black people, but only one sector that I see has so many problems, so many controversy, and that's the judicial system. Do you think the judicial system is being used by the white supremacists just to slow down the growth of the black people? That's my opinion. That's what I think. Because United States is just like a competition. When you come with your knowledge and you want to work, the only place they can hold you down, to keep you down, is the judicial system. I've made some research and I've seen myself that there is only 12% of black people in the whole United States. But yet,
Right.
when you go to some country, because I work for the state, for the California Department of Correction and Rehabilitation for 12 years, you see more black people in some jails than white. And the
Right.
normal thing would be like, we should have more white people in jail than the minority populating more state prison and federal prison than the white people. Do you really think that it is just like another tool used just to slow down the growth of the minority? When I say minority, I don't mean exactly black people, but I mean Mexican and black. And when you combine the Mexican and the black, they barely make 30% of the population. Yet they populate up to 80% in certain prison and jail.
Well, that's a wonderful, not just question, but a thoughtful conversation. And let me give you a thoughtful response. The first thing is, I hope this program is being recorded. Is it? Wonderful, because I think that the written transcript and the program, we can use this on my radio show, Voices from the Front Lines. We can transcribe it and make it into an article. So let me give you a long answer, if it's okay, to a long question, which is a very good question and a very thoughtful observation. The first thing that's really important to understand is that if you understand France and England and the United States and Portugal and Spain, Italy, if you understand them as parasites, then what you don't know is when you come to the United States and you see something good, you don't understand that that came out of African blood. It came out of Vietnamese blood. It came out of indigenous lands. It's on the bones of 100 million indigenous people who had a civilization here for more than 15,000 years before the Spanish came. And the Spanish came and wiped out 90 million people in 1 century. Then they started building something. But then the British said, no, you can't build it. We're the parasites. You get out. And then the British came and took it over from the Spanish. Then the US imperialists said, no, we want independence. We are the parasites. You go back to England. Now, I live a good life. I live I have food, I have car, I have all the things I need, pretty simple. But I'm telling you that everything I have is the product of slave labor for 500 years, which is why I can only work against slavery all my life. You, as a very politically conscious African, have made a tremendous observation about the judicial system, but I think you need to take it even deeper, that the whole country is a prison. And it is imprisoned not just Black people and Mexicans, it's still imprisoning Africa. Why do you think they hate China? Because China put up a wall and said, you're not coming in, it's our country. They hate China. What has China ever done to the United States? Nothing. The United States has gone to China through the opium wars with the British, forced opium on the people, forced foot binding on women. What was the first thing that the Chinese Communist Revolution did? It got rid of opium and it got rid of foot binding. And you know how they got rid of opium? They killed all the drug dealers, folks. That's being really straight. They said, you are part of colonialism. We can't have national liberation if our people are on drugs. So now you come to the United States. You're absolutely right. The imprisonment of Black people started, of course, when they were in Africa, right? African nations. So, just take a minute. And you said I got time. In reading How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, see if this is accurate. There was slavery in Africa before the Europeans came, but not this kind of slavery. Slavery in Africa, you were allowed eventually to be part of the country that enslaved you. You would marry into that culture. Your children were not slaves. You were a slave. But in the European thing, once you're a slave, your children are slave, your grandchildren are slave, you'll never get out of slavery because it's built on slavery. So now we come to the United States. Black people come here as an enslaved people. They come from Senegal, they come from Ghana, they come from, using the names of the countries now. What's the first thing they did?
Nigeria.
What?
Nigeria.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when they mentioned every single country. What's the first thing they did, Joe? They prevented people from speaking their tribal language. Then they divided up. If they saw someone was from, and I'm just saying Senegal, and someone was from Ghana, someone was from Nigeria, they made sure they were not in the same plantation. So they could not, even as Nigerians, say, what the hell happened to me? Let's organize. Then I have to say it, they use rape, castration, torture, whipping. And then you say, well, why is the United States such a nice country? Well, yeah, if you stole everything for 500 years and you built up a country on the bones of everyone, I don't think it's a very good country. The second thing is that, as you said, Black people are 12% of the population. When I was in the civil rights movement, we were talking about the racism of the criminal justice system. Do you know how many Black people, do you know how many people were in prison in 1965 when I got involved in the United States? 200,000. 200,000. And yes, 30% of them were Black.
Unbelievable.
200,000. Now there's 2.5 million, of whom 1 million are Black. Now there's 200,000 women in prison. This is a country that is enslaving Black people today. But it's also creating fear and terror in the community. So a lot of, when my friend Channing Martinez, who Adrienne knows well, he ran for city council in Los Angeles in District 10. And he's going to run again, by the way, sisters and brothers, in 2024. He's a young man, 32 years old at the time. He said he is Black, Garifuna, Belizean, queer, revolutionary. Just that shocked the hell out of people to talk like that. He said, I want to cut the police by 50%. I want 50% of all new jobs must go to Black people. I want to get all the kids out of prison. I want no cars in LA because we're polluting not just our air, but Africa, creating drought and floods and desertification in Africa. I want open borders for immigrants. I want abortion rights for women. Nobody had heard anybody talk like this. But back in the 60s, we all talked like this. This is how Malcolm talked. This is how Dr. King talked. This is how Fannie Lou Hamer talked. These were my teachers. So when Channing ran, what do you mean cut the police by 50%? Well, we have a budget of $10 billion in the city of Los Angeles. $3 billion is tied up in the police. But the kids have lousy schools. There's no health programs. Every social, Adrienne works in the realm of social services. All the social services are at colonial levels, but we got an occupying army. Why do we have so many police? Because they don't want Black people to rise up. So I would say to you that just what you said, I mean, you hit it on the head. If it was not racism, If Black people were 12% of the population, there would be 12% in prison. If white people are 50, 55% still of the damn country, there'd be 50% of them in prison. If Mexicans are maybe 14%, I got to check, then they'd be 40. That's no, because they're not going around randomly. It's not random. They are going after Black people. And the Black child today wakes up in the morning and says goodbye to their mom, and the mom wonders if the boy's going to come home.
Well,
Yes.
Yeah, Eric, that's interesting. I was talking about that this morning with a young man that I know personally who came from Senegal a year ago. Since a year is here, United States, because he married African American here, and we know Black and brown. What's happened? I always say Black and brown because we know the Latinos and the Latinos community. I say Black and brown, African descent. I always say, for example, I'm Senegalese. When people say I'm 100% Senegalese, I will tell them, no, you cannot say that. Why? Because I was born in Senegal from African descent, because my descendants, we traveled back and forward in Africa. You know, there was no 54 countries. There were countries were free. We have 2,000 languages there, 3,000 nations. I don't call them tribes. When they say tribes, it's not tribe. We were nations.
All right, you preach, sister.
And at the same time, when you say, I figure out that young people, unfortunately, young African American, when they speak English, because we learn English in Senegal at school, I cannot understand them very well. And at the same time, I was looking for their level of education, and I didn't understand. I say, well, let me explain to you. First of all, when we go to school, there is a multi-generational trauma that was coming from slave trade, but at the same time, the abuse of the Black community in the United States. Right. We don't teach us our history, nor are they teaching the right history of African descent in Africa. Meaning they don't talk about where we come from, and people who are in the United States, what they face. They divide us. They will say to African American here, African descent, your people in Africa, they sold you into slavery. And here they were telling us when we come here, African American are lazy. But how? What's happened? Every time that the population, African American, rise, you know what's happened for the Tuskegee survey. You know also what's happened in Tesla, the Black Wall Street. Every time they rise, they will snatch them and destroy. People who has land in Manhattan, in Malibu, they snatch their land. They snatch what they create for themselves. Invention for Black people. They take the invention for Black people, they remove the name and put their name on top of it. I said, this is the first step. The second step, and you can, after we let you speak about that, the second step about everything I'm talking about right now. The second step is, if you have this trauma and you see your dad or your mom being killed just for a light bulb who has been burst, arrested in the street, killed. George Floyd's story also for something that was suspicious. Kill. You now have this trauma, but at the same time, you have to take care of the family members who are still here. Meaning you as a young person, you have to drop from school and take care of your family. Then you have your parents that they put in prison. Meaning when they are in prison, who will take care of the young generation? Nobody. Meaning also about the language. As people are not going further in school and they are dropping early, the language will be twisted, but at the same time, the twisted language we're using by former slaves to talk to each other, make sure that the master will not understand what they are saying, right?
Right.
Meaning all that, I leave it with you, and you can, give us more insight of that. Thank you, Eric.
Well, in that, I do want to tie up, and we could do this again. I want to talk to you about what Adrienne just said, and I'm calling you Jap. I like, if it's okay, until I learn your first name better. At the Labor Community Strategy Center in South Central, this is the kind of conversations we have. When Adrienne first came, we put out a thing about what we call vaccine imperialism in Africa. That's what drew you. And then when we came, what an interesting person she is. Speaks so many languages. is working on Black Latino unity, Black Brown unity, including many Latinos don't realize they're Black, or I should say, many people who talk about Latinos do not realize many Latinos are Black, Cubans, Belizean, Afro. There's so many Afro Latinos. But we need to have the best people sit around, build relationships, and talk. So this Thursday night, I beg you, go register for this, because this is the type of conversation we're going to have. Adrienne is going to be in the audience. She will not be one of the speakers this time, but I would be shocked if she isn't speaking anyway, knowing her. But she'll be on other programs. We need to build African Black unity. We need to build anti-imperialist unity all over the world. The Labor Community Strategy Center, our national leadership school for strategic organizing, of which I'm director, is a Pan-Africanist organization, anti-imperialist organization. We want more connections with the sisters and brothers in Africa. What you just said out there was so wonderful about, no, of course it's not tribes. They were fully developed civilizations that were destroyed by European parasitic, barbaric invasion. So with that, sisters and brothers, let me say this. This has been a pleasure for me. Great. I'm going to go back and work on my book. I saw revolution with my own eyes. And Adrienne, you need to write the good thing about this is we will transcribe this, the Strategy Center will transcribe this recording. And you need to get this out. This is a wonderful podcast. I'm so honored to be part of it. And if you invite me to come back, I will. And Adrienne, I'm going to have you on my show, voicesfromthefrontlines.com. Check that out. And because I'm an organizer, I'll be honest, I don't care if there's 6 people listening, and I hope there are more than 6. If there's 6, and one of you gives a damn and writes to me, Eric, at voicesfromthefrontlines.com, if one of you registers by going on thestrategycenter.org, and it's a free registration for how Europe, underdeveloped Africa, Thursday night, February 17th, 6 to 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If one of you registers and one of you emails me, this was worth my time. And if you don't, I'm going to come get you. No, if you don't, we have this transcript. We have this wonderful show. I still had a wonderful time just with the 3 of us talking. I'm honored to be on it, and I take care of everybody. God bless you. All power to the people.
Eric, you're amazing. All power to the people. Absolutely. We know that you also have a podcast out there. We know the event on Thursday. Please make sure that you send me the flyer.
Yes.
Please make sure that you also send me the link, because I have the link for the invitation in person, and I'm really thankful that you thought about me. I'm humbled about that. Really, you give us the power to speak about things that we want to talk about, and we don't have sometimes the courage to say that. Myself, I don't care. I'm a fearless person. No, whatever happened tomorrow, I don't mind. At least this podcast we go. We're gonna share it with you and share it with our audience. But I want to make sure that you will share the flyer with me for Thursday. And
I'm
the
sending
link
it
for
right
people.
now.
Absolutely. You have been amazing. It has been a wonderful time. Jawad, you have an idea. Can you tell us what you are thinking about? I want you to let Eric know what you're gonna do. Please take the mic. Jawad.
Eric, I'm so happy and I'm very satisfied with the answer that you give us. I was almost crying, just to tell you the truth, because I was not expecting somebody like you to feel the same sensation that many black people feel. We love this country. I can tell you this. I just want you to know that I love this country so much for the opportunity that this country gave me, and the opportunity that he gives so many people. But in so many ways also, we are being failed to grow. It's very hard for us to grow. I feel like if this country was fair enough for all the black people who come in here and all the black people who live here and love this country, if they were all given the opportunity, they would fly. They would fly because they have the energy, they have the passion, they have the love to elevate the United States to the planets. But somewhere there is some people who don't accept what God made us to be. We are different, we have different emotions, but we are still human beings, and we should be given the chance to show that talent that's sleeping on us. So what I was thinking is to just create a talk show every Saturday evening to invite some lawyers, invite some civil rights fighters for racial equality. And I think that would be something, if you accept something that's going to be very informative to everyone. It's going to give like up-to-date information to kill the suffering of some people. And that's what I was thinking. Like, I was like, Adrienne, if you allow me, man, I would like to invite Eric. We create a talk show for just 1 hour, maybe 45 minutes. Invite some teachers, some professors, some lawyers, some doctors, just to talk about different aspects of racism and how it affects different classes and everywhere around the United States. Maybe the government would be conscious that the Americans want to be united, just like the name United States of America. So they know people love each other. The kids don't. I have a white boy that's called me dad that live in my house, a foster boy that I adopted. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Anytime I look at him, it's just like my daughter. They play together. So I'm like, this is what America should be about. Different color, melting pot, but everybody be united just like the United States of America. Eric.
Brother, I'm going to give you the last word. That was the last word. And I will see you very soon. The last thing for the listeners who don't know, it's hard, for some people. I'm a Jew. I am a so-called, I don't identify, by the way, as white. I accept that I'm white, but I do not identify as white. I identify politically as black, culturally as black, and racially identify as a Jew. But I know when you see somebody like me, you say, what the hell? How does he talk like that? I mean, not just so to talk like that, but where's that coming from? All I can tell you is all my teachers are black.
Thank you.
And they beat all the white out of me. So they taught me, they brought me up. I share the rage, and I share the pain, and I share the love. And we'll keep going, brother and sister.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric, for wonderful moment that we spent together. We were again into LEKET La Caisse de Résonance Africaine with Eric MANN, a wonderful person that I've met and I'm learning every day from him. Eric, see you later. I don't know if you're at the Strategic Center right now. I don't think so. I'm going to pass by. No matter what, I will see you on Thursday and we're going to continue the talk. Thanks for being our guest. We are honored. Have a blessed weekend. Bye, people. You are on Sunuker.fm. Thank you, Ndewa, for your kind words. Thank you, all of you. Have a bye-bye.
Korvatu vayonda regini ramo korvatu bay komi bay papa bayo tabayo ye jario ganuni kanola fatuma ya yerelo marvatu yo la garamaro merkati monono marvatu yo la garamaro la garangwazano